Oh, hello, welcome to Rogue Rocket. My name is DeFranco, and today we're going to be talking about how streaming has completely flipped the music industry over the last few years. From getting discovered to even just making a living. And that extends to the millions of lesser known artists too, right? The ones that are creating tracks in their bedroom just with a microphone and a mixer, with some even crediting streaming services with being the reason that they can remain financially independent. Even though at the same time, if you look at the highest earning artists in the world, streaming typically makes up just a small percentage of their earnings. For example, in 2018, the group U2 had the highest earnings of any group, raking in $52 million from touring, and from streaming, 600 grand. And it's not just them, that trend is actually similar to other artists, from Garth Brooks to Metallica to Ed Sheeran to Lady Gaga. But then you do have a few exceptions, like Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar actually made a quarter of his earnings from streaming. And then you also have cases like Drake. Drake actually made more than 2/3 of his income from streaming since he didn't tour last year. And while streaming usually doesn't make these large artists the bulk of their money, it is one of the main sources of change in the industry. So today, to show you how lesser known artists are getting a shot and what the music industry in general looks like today, we had Dylan Siegel from the Rogue Rocket team jump into it.
Let's take a peek at how Daniel Ek, CEO of Spotify, thinks about streaming in the music industry.
So the way I think about our mission is to inspire human creativity by enabling 1 million artists to be able to live off of their art and 1 billion people to be able to enjoy it and be inspired by it.
That was him talking on the Freakonomics podcast about his goal for the platform. And he's been talking about that since at least March 2018, around the time the streaming service went public. But is it possible? We reached out to a few lesser known artists who we found on some of Spotify's top playlists.
I mean, I'm not sure about the 1 million. That seems pretty high number. But why not? Spotify and the streaming thing has made it possible to just do stuff in your own bedroom and make money out of it, which has never been possible before.
If people want to adjust their ideas of what it means to be supported by music, if you work a 9 to 5 and maybe you can reduce some hours and like work at the same time and have your side gig, whatever, that's definitely viable.
Like say if I drop a song right now, it'll show up and everybody who's been listening to me and who follows me will see it. But yeah, it definitely is a door opener. To being able to live off of it,
Like Phil mentioned, the biggest artists typically pull in the majority of their cash from touring, but there are a few other main ways that artists make money. There's selling merchandise, the growing giant that is streaming, selling physical music like vinyl and CDs, performance royalties, and something called synchronization, where music is used in TV or film. But let's take a look at touring and streaming, the biggest moneymakers for the industry. It's difficult to estimate exactly how much the music industry makes in touring revenue, but a Citibank report indicates that in 2017, US consumers spent about $10 billion on music subscriptions and about $8 billion on concerts. The Recording Industry Association of America's numbers also show that streaming from services like Spotify and Apple makes up a massive amount of all recorded music revenue. And this is a fairly recent trend. 2005 was the first year that paid streaming subscriptions even made it into the RIAA's data. 2014 was the first year that streaming took in $1 billion. And in 2018, streaming accounted for at least $5.4 billion, or 58% of total recorded music revenues. As a whole, the music industry has even been growing for 3 consecutive years, largely due to streaming. But this looks totally different than the music industry's peak in 1999. The growing use of the internet, MP3s, and file sharing services like Napster effectively pulled the carpet out from under the industry. We spoke with Dan Siegel, professor of music at Miracosta College, who's been releasing music since 1979, both independently and with record labels. Full disclosure, he's also my dad, and he's been inadvertently lecturing me for years about the music industry.
In those days, that's another aspect of how the business has changed. The gatekeepers were the record companies. You couldn't participate in this business unless you got signed through a record company. And that's changed completely.
With fewer of those gatekeepers, there are now plenty of ways to immediately share your music with massive audiences. Spotify reportedly has more than 200 million users around the globe. SoundCloud had about 175 million registered users in 2018, and YouTube has over 1.9 billion logged in users each month. On the other hand, the self-described artist-first service, Tidal, hardly makes a dent, clocking in at around 3 million subscribers last year. In any case, both SoundCloud and YouTube have completely remove the barriers to sharing music. Despite what some have said, that's partly how we got Billie Eilish, a 17-year-old pop star. The story goes that she worked vocals over a track her brother produced, called it Ocean Eyes, and put it on SoundCloud. The track was supposed to be for her choir teacher, but it blew up. As of writing this, her debut album released at the end of March tops the Billboard 200. Her top 5 most streamed songs on Spotify each carry at least 200 million streams, and she performed at Coachella. But not all platforms are as easy as YouTube or SoundCloud. Spotify, Amazon, and Apple require a middleman to upload music, usually a label or service like CD Baby or TuneCore. On top of the low barrier to getting your music online, there are also a couple factors that make it easier to get started and succeed. The first is how easy it is to be discovered. Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube each offer their own playlists, recommendations, and algorithms for discovering new tracks. Spotify has a playlist called Discover Weekly that feeds users new recommendations based on previous listening. Apple Music creates a set of playlists in a For You section based on your previous listening habits. Likewise, each service has playlists curated by users and the service itself that can rack up millions of followers. Here are some artists talking about getting on playlists.
What's going on? I'm Willie Jones, and I'm 24 years old, Shreveport, Louisiana, and I make country music. I was placed on New Music Friday on Spotify, a couple other playlists on Spotify. I just found out that they put my picture on the cover of Wild Country on Spotify, which is like a big crossover country playlist.
My name's Sam Paulino. My stage name is Sam Paulino.
I'm Hank Collins or Hank Native.
My name is Connor Stankovic. I'm also Swang.
99 Neighbors makes rap-oriented music.
It was like week of, like best of the week or something like that. On Spotify.
And then Apple New Fire.
Yeah.
Spotify, we got Fridays.
The Cancer playlist. And
Cancer playlist.
New Music Friday.
My name is Katrina. Ullakko is my last name. I'm from Finland. I'm 24-year-old singer and songwriter, and I work under the name Olivera. My music is kind of electro, indie, pop vibe. There are playlists like Happy Hits, Wake Up Happy, some random playlists like Feel Good Dinner and Office Stereo, obviously New Music Fridays.
Those artists could see very tangible results from their inclusion on a top Spotify playlist. One study from last year suggested that the resulting royalty payout from being on Spotify's Today's Top Hits playlist with 20 million plus followers could be between $80,000 and $160,000. But the benefits range from financial wins to new opportunities.
I would say that that Spotify is like saved me from having to get another job. Yeah, it's impossible to exaggerate that.
I've gotten a couple calls for some different festivals and just getting different looks. My Instagram's been booming, getting tweets and DMs from new fans.
We've had opportunities to travel, to different places, and we've had business meetings that we otherwise wouldn't have had unless we were able to reach people through streaming services.
But the barrier to entry isn't just at the level of getting your music out there to millions of listeners. It's also easier to make the tunes themselves.
We have 3 studios in this basement effectively, so it's easy to swap around.
Three bedrooms, each has a mic.
Three bedroom, yeah.
So studio, if you want to call it that. But
I say I set up with monitors, a laptop, maybe some MIDI stuff, and a mic. You know what I'm saying?
No, my studio is right there. In the corner of my living room. So, yeah. This is where the magic happens.
And all these factors seem to be contributing to smaller artists getting a better shot at making it. In the last 3 years, the number of songs streamed has exploded, and smaller artists that make up the vast majority of music makers are capturing a larger portion of the market. According to BuzzAngle, a music market analytics group, audio streams reached 250 billion in 2016, 376 billion in 2017, and doubled in just 2 years to more than $500 billion in 2018. In 2016, the top 50 streaming tracks captured about 4% of all streaming, or about 10 billion streams. In 2018, the top 50 tracks carried only 0.7% of all streaming, or about 3.7 billion streams. On the farther end, the top 500,000 tracks streamed have gone from taking 94% of all streams to to 92.4%. So basically, that means that in 2018, the top 500,000 streamed songs took 493 of 534 billion streams. Another way of looking at it is that if we were to look at just Spotify's catalog, the remaining 34.5 million songs would share the other 40-ish billion streams. Regardless of that disparity, that report concludes that consumers are exercising their choice to explore new music, which is a terrific sign for the industry.
So I think what we're going to see over time is that percentage is going to increase. There's going to be a larger group of people that are going to share in those top streams.
So do all these factors really amount to artists living off their craft? Well, if you're independent, you likely own both of the copyrights, and that definitely helps.
You have the song, which is known as the performing arts copyright, and then you have the recording of the song, which is the sound recording copyright. Those are the two main copyrights in music. The songwriter owns the PA copyright in the song, and the record company traditionally has owned the sound recording copyright. Now with independent artists, it's possible for them to own both of those copyrights.
This means independent artists benefit from a bigger share of the royalties, which ultimately means more money in the artist's pocket. Although lesser-known artists are clearly getting a bump in streaming and independence, there's still information to suggest that it isn't enough, and what artists are receiving on a per-stream basis looks pretty rough. Ironically, Napster, the poster boy of the music industry's decline, now pays the most, at almost 2 cents per stream. Apple Music pays around 7/10 of a cent per stream, with Spotify coming in around 4/10 of a cent, and YouTube brings up the rear with about 7/100 of a cent per stream. That definitely doesn't sound like a lot of money, and oftentimes it's not. For example, Zoe Keating, a cellist, shared her streaming payout information with Digital Music News. In the first half of 2018, she earned just under $6,000 from 1.6 million streams, and in 2017, $10,000 from 2.6 million streams. And this is without a record label taking a cut. A country artist named Jason Kirkness also shared his payouts, which after 337,000 streams, earned him $747. Although, a caveat here, each artist's revenue stream can look totally different for any number of reasons, like whether a label is taking a cut, how they're distributing, or what platform the revenue is coming from. Artists aside, streaming companies haven't been moneymakers either. Even though Spotify has grown and grown, it hasn't been profitable until the fourth quarter of 2018. SoundCloud nearly crumbled back in 2017 after its subscription service failed, executives left, and 40% of its staff was let go. On the other hand, companies like Apple, YouTube, and Amazon can support their streaming services since they make and sell other products. Ultimately, this is a very new landscape that artists, record companies, and middlemen are all getting used to. Now, we're in a place where some artists can make a career in their pajamas at home, and not only that, make money from it. But for others, like touring musicians, streaming is just a part of the puzzle. It's pretty clear that the subscription model in music isn't going away. At the end of April, Spotify announced that it had 100 million paying subscribers around the world. However, the big question is whether this will all translate to Spotify and other streaming services, enabling millions of artists to live off their work.
So with all of that said, everything we've showcased, of course, we want to pass the question off to you. What do you think about streaming and how it's changed the music world? If you're an artist yourself, what's the experience been like? What's the good? What's the bad? Main point being, we'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below. Also, hey, if you liked this video, be sure to take a second to hit that like button. If we've done our job and you want to see more of this type of content, the deep dives into the news, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Definitely ring that bell to turn on notifications. Also, if you want more news, be sure to head over to roguerocket.com/support, where you can contribute to what we're doing with videos like these, articles, and more. But with that said, of course, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon for the next Rogue Rocket Deep Dive.